Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get us started because, as promised, we have a fairly full agenda. We want to be able to stay on schedule. My name is Susie Gordon, and I'm an environmental planner with the city in the Environmental Services Department. And we couldn't be more thrilled at this wonderful turnout. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon to talk about waste reduction and recycling and reuse and all the other important concepts for the city's consideration in a project that we're working on that's been nicknamed the Road to Zero Waste. Here's the background for our project. The city of Fort Collins in 1999 adopted a goal of diverting 50% of its waste stream from landfill disposal. And here we are, 14 years later, at a crossroads, because depending on how you count it, the city is about at 50% waste diversion, which is pretty thrilling. It's really, really good. In this state, in this part of the country, we're, I think, showing that this community has a very serious commitment to waste reduction and recycling. And so the City Council has asked us, our staff, to work on a new plan that will take us into the future another 10 or 20 years. So the Waste Reduction and Recycling Plan, or the Road to Zero Waste, is underway officially with this meeting. And I'm going to just give you a very quick snapshot of what is going to happen over the next 5 months. We are going to be ultimately taking a proposal in November to the City Council, sort of as a draft proposal, and asking them to take official action in December. And so what we'll be taking to the Council will be the information we've gathered from the public in settings like this, where we've gotten great comments, good ideas. We want to just encourage everyone to think big and what should the future of our community look like. So that's where we are. We're between now and then. We have a wonderful consulting firm I'm going to introduce you to shortly. They'll be back on a couple more occasions. We'll have more open houses, more opportunities to have a great dialogue with the community, and hopefully to collect as many comments as possible. In front of you, you have note cards. You're very welcome to write comments down. If you want to go online, we've got a pretty good website, fcgov.com/zero-waste, and you'll get a lot of information there, and also be able to put your written comments on electronically. So without much further ado, let me introduce Gary Liss, who is with a company called Zero Waste Associates. His colleague, Rick Anthony, is in the front row. Rick, there you go. There's two more partners on the project, a woman named Ruth Abbey with HDR Engineering, and Eric Lombardi from EcoCycle in Boulder, who some of you may know. And in subsequent trips, you'll be meeting those folks, and we encourage you again to come and get a chance to share in the community conversation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gary. Gary, I want to let you know, is almost one of the foremost experts in zero waste, not only in this country but internationally. On this table, you'll see he has a number of publications. He has been in many of the magazines and conferences that I and my colleagues attend regularly because he's been working on this for
17 years.
17 years.
40 years in the business.
All right, thank you very much. Let us welcome Gary Liss.
Thanks, Susie, and thank you all for coming. By way of introduction, I got around most of the room to introduce myself directly, but I'd like to see a show of hands. How many people here are from a reuse business or thrift store or nonprofit organization? Oh, right. How many people are here from a recycling business or other service provider? How many here are from other nonprofit organizations in town? How many are here from a academic, from a university or college? How many here are from local government here to help us? Okay. Anyone else any other category I didn't mention? And general residents, most important. My apologies. We're doing this plan as was stated to update the city's goal. We definitely want the input from all the different stakeholders in this room. At the end of this presentation, we'll be asking you for your suggestions of other people that should have been here. We're going to have 3 other public meetings. This one's focusing on reduce and reuse, but we'll be having one tomorrow on recycling. July 15 to 17, we'll be having ones on composting and waste to clean energy. We'll be meeting with other stakeholders and touring around more. We've been touring all day today. So we really want to get a sense from the community of what you want as residents, as businesses, as service providers, and really capture that. In our discussions, I'll be flip charting, and Rick Anthony will be leading the discussion on that. But let me first give a little bit of background on what Zero Waste is all about. The Waste Reduction and Recycling Plan for Fort Collins is On the Road to Zero Waste is the subtitle. So we want to make sure everyone understood what we understand zero waste to mean. And I like to start with the elevator speech. How many people have heard of reduce, reuse, recycle? Okay, it's one of the most well-known phrases in the world. And we're saying if we really reduced, reused, and recycled, we'd be at zero waste or darn close. So what's different than what we've been doing is focusing first on reducing and reusing, and then recycling, composting, digesting, redesigning the rest. One of the goals when we first started talking about zero waste was to get people to focus upstream. How do we stop the wasting from the beginning? Where did things go wrong is one of the key questions we ask. Waste is a verb, not a noun. It's something we decided to do for some reason because our boss told us, the government told us it's always been done that way, or some other reason. And what we're saying Zero Waste is about is trying to get to the heart of why that's happened and how do we change that. There's also a internationally accepted peer-reviewed definition by the Zero Waste International Alliance that has 3 basic components in green: that all discarded materials are designed to become resources for others to use. We don't want to burn or bury those, and we want to eliminate all discharges to land, air, and water. So by definition, those are essentially the goals of what zero waste means, according to the Zero Waste International Alliance. And the measure of progress towards performance towards that goal that the International Alliance came up with through the Zero Waste Community Principles and the Zero Waste Business Principles is 90%. If you achieve 90% diversion, you're at zero waste or darn close, according to that alliance's principles. What are some of the drivers of the idea of zero waste? These drivers apply whether you adopt the zero waste goal ultimately here in Fort Collins or a high diversion goal. All these ideas about the drivers pertain no matter what you call it. So keep that in mind. But zero waste is intimately connected with climate change. On a day like today, we're seeing the results of the forest situation changing with the fire and the smoke coming down the hill. It needs to remind us that this is an important issue, and what are some of the contributors to climate change that are related to zero waste are that landfills are one of the largest sources of greenhouse gases. The majority of the gases produced are methane. Methane acts 21 to 72 times more potent than carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to affect greenhouse gas and the greenhouse effect. So it acts 21 to 25 times more potent than CO2 over a long period, over a 100-year horizon, which is the horizon that is typically used to measure the performance of different alternatives to what we're doing currently. It acts 72 times more potently in a 20-year horizon, and that's why if climate change is something that we feel an urgency to do something about, it's that 72-time multiplier that's really important to keep in mind. In the short term, methane acts faster than CO2 in causing the greenhouse effect. What do you think causes the methane in the landfill? What's the source of that? Anybody in the audience? Food scraps, organics, exactly. So we basically need to keep the compostable organics out of the landfills in order to address that issue. In addition, we like to talk about the wasteberg, that for every ton in front of us at our municipal landfill, there's 71 tons produced upstream from mining, manufacturing, and distribution of products along the way. And that's the reason we can't recycle our way out of the situation. We've got to reduce that. We've got to reuse products and packaging over and over again because we can't recycle our way out of this. It's that 71 tons upstream that's a really important thing to keep in mind. And when you look at the implications of this from a climate change perspective, in California, we said if we recycled and composted all the materials left that are still being landfilled in California, it'd be the equivalent of taking all cars off the road. Here in Fort Collins, you're updating your climate action plan. We just heard today that over 50% of all your climate change reductions over the last 10 years are coming from your waste initiatives, your recycling initiatives, waste reduction and recycling initiatives. Let's give a round of applause to all those involved with your local initiatives. That's really fantastic. Just an amazing accomplishment, and it underscores this link and why this is so important to go beyond where we're at right now. In terms of other drivers, jobs is a huge part of it, and the creation of wealth. We met with the Council of Futures Committee last night, and they underscored it's not just about jobs and low-paying jobs, it's about wealth creation and getting people to have more business opportunities and doing all sorts of creative things. I like to highlight my wood tie on recycled jeans as an example for those of you who saw that close up by a small local business person in my hometown. I was so proud when I found that he was offering these, thegreentoolbelt.com. You can get one yourself. Thank you for that paid announcement. But in terms of jobs and wealth creation, the recycling industry, a lot of people don't realize, is as large as the automobile industry used to be in America. As of 2001, in California, it's as large as the motion picture industry. If we had 10,000 tons of materials and we landfill it, we create 1 job. If we compost that amount of materials, we create 4 jobs. If we recycle that amount of materials, we create 10 jobs. And if we reuse that amount of products and packaging, we create 75 to 250 jobs. So it's not just about tons diverted from the landfill that we're moving towards zero waste and suggesting that as a goal for the community on the road to zero waste. It's because managing those resources can create those types of jobs, create the opportunities for businesses and nonprofits to expand, to provide the services needed to get to zero waste. Reinvesting those resources in local businesses, not continuing to export. Over 80% of all recyclables in America go overseas. That means, and 49% of all the jobs in recycling are in manufacturing. So we're shipping all 80% of our materials, which are manufactured, getting the 49% of the higher paid, better jobs overseas, and then we're buying those products back. We can stop that. We need to stop that. China is starting cracking down on the quality standards. We cannot continue to sell our stuff in a diminished form like we've been doing for the last several years, the last decade basically. We need to be more self-reliant. We need to invest those resources locally, and that's what we're working on. We encourage, as part of the zero waste process, to look at the connections between the public, private, and university, the triple helix. Dr. Wade Troxell said last night, emphasizing the universities helping on researching and developing new technologies, new approaches, and we need to get beyond crushing and grinding things and use biology and chemistry and physics and natural principles to move forward to accomplish these goals, and that's what is going to get us those jobs. In terms of other drivers, the benefits to businesses are they all save money. Every zero waste business we've documented has saved money. I'm president of the U.S. Zero Waste Business Council. We just had our second National Zero Waste Conference. And we had Toyota and Honda and all these different companies telling their story directly about how they did it. General Motors highlighted in a recent meeting to me they have accomplished more than all the other automobile makers combined, saving $1 billion a year with over 100 facilities, over 98% diversion. Just amazing stuff that we're hearing. So it saves them money, it reduces their liability under the Superfund Act, it increases their efficiency, reduces their greenhouse emissions, provides a marketing edge for the green businesses that people do want to support with their dollars. Opportunities for clean energy and saving energy, and it's the right thing to do and reduces litter to oceans and watersheds. Benefits to communities, in addition to helping their businesses achieve all those benefits, is that it's one of the fastest and most cost-effective ways that local governments can contribute to reducing climate change. Like we heard, 50% of your reduction here has come from these activities. Creating green jobs, promoting local sustainability, assisting local businesses getting all those benefits, promoting local food, getting the the organics back to the soil to bring the food and closing the loop. And protecting the health of residents. When you talk with people, you may have gotten the rolling eye look, and this slide is for that. Is zero waste attainable? People first hearing about it may not have felt that it was, but we cite nature as the model. 3.5 billion years where there's no landfills or no incinerators in nature. Nature is the model, and we try to learn from nature with programs like ZERI, the Zero Emissions Research Initiatives, thinking out of the box, and shiitake loving caffeine, growing quicker than on old growth oak in China, so you can harvest coffee grounds locally, grow mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms, and outcompete China for selling mushrooms locally. So we need to learn from nature. Nature is our model. I say reduce, reuse, recycle, compost, digest, redesign, and when you don't know what else to do, ask what would nature do? And that's where we're going to use that biology, chemistry, really studying how nature deals with these problems. And we say don't get hung up on the word zero. That's why we say zero waste or darn close. It's not about the destination of zero, it's about the journey. If you're designing for zero waste, everything's on the table. You ask, why is it being wasted? What is wrong with this picture? Who screwed up? What went wrong? And how do we do something better in the future? This is as American as apple pie. Waste not, want not. Use it up, wear it out, make it do without. That was a clarion call of the Great Depression. That's how we got through that downturn. That's how we're getting through this downturn. The thrift stores are thriving, and that's what this is all about. And businesses are leading the way, as we've said, showing that it can be done, showing all over the world thousands of businesses diverting over 90%. Small businesses, large businesses, electronic, organic businesses, Air Force bases. The Department of Defense has a net energy, water, and waste program they're piloting all over the country. And we see locally there's businesses leading the way to zero waste here, like Hewlett-Packard, Avago, New Belgium Brewery, Intel, and Woodward we've heard about. You may know of others. We'd like to hear those to get on this list that we capture in the zero waste plan. Communities are looking to how they can support businesses achieving all those benefits, and increasingly are adopting zero waste goals, zero waste plans, and strategies on how to achieve zero waste in their communities. Over 125 in Italy alone in the last 2 years. Over 30 cities now in California, many in this neighborhood, generally Austin, Dallas, and San Antonio, Texas, Telluride, Boulder, Colorado are examples of communities that have gone to zero waste and are doing well at doing so. I'm going to invite my colleague up now, Rick Anthony, to conclude our initial presentation, and then we'll have a couple of other aspects to go over from a couple of the audience members before we get into our dialogue. Rick Anthony.
It's always fun working with Gary. He's very dynamic and passionate, and he believes in this. He's the politician. I was really the staff. I was head of garbage for Fresno County from 1979 to 1987. That's about 500,000 people, and then I was head of resource recovery for San Diego County at 3.5 million. I'm retired, but I work as a consultant. Spend a lot of times on landfill, running landfills over those 25 years. But I've come to think, and through all the analysis and the hands-on work, is that we need to stop doing that. We really, as I get older, I get less and less patient, as my children look at me, I realize I do have a responsibility for what I did. So when we look at managing resources, typically when you start to set up a paradigm on how you're going to deal with it, we want to deal with upstream and downstream. I like to call the upstream prevention. This keeps the stuff out of it in the first place. General Motors, Coors, going to 90+% on recycling at their facilities. That's clean production. And what we're finding, Gary is showing, organizations all over the world that are actually figuring out that they can run their plants so efficiently that they have almost zero waste. And they're not doing it because it's the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do, but they're doing it because times are tough, and this is a way to make some money because it's a cost to waste. The other part of the upstream is when we see downstreams, we see stuff that we can't recycle. The diaper would be one of this. What do you do with a diaper? You have to build a landfill to bury a diaper. We don't want to do that. They ought to redesign that product so at least we can flush it or recycle it. And that's the third part, is the product stewardship, is the businesses taking the lead and redesigning their product and being clean production. And you see leaders like Ray Anderson in Interface Carpet taking the lead, Anheuser-Busch. Right over here in town, our brewery is a zero waste company. Now, that's all the prevention side, and we can do that by making new rules and people taking responsibility. On the downstream sides, that's really where the city comes in because it's got to handle these discards. And so we like to see reuse as refuse and reduce as a criteria for a consumption society. Okay. But at least reuse it over and over again. And if it's still good, make sure that it gets reused. So top of the line is to reuse, till it's totally broken, and then you can recycle it. Reuse and repair it. And then the third stream is the compost. Half of what we generate, and I'll show you, is organics. It could be compost. It's a soil amendment. Why would you take it to the landfill and make methane gas that's going to get in the atmosphere and cause greenhouse gases when you could take it to the farm and create new soil? So that's part of it. If there's a leftover, maybe there's a clean energy. Maybe in the digestion process with food material, we can capture the methane that is byproduct as we make this compost and use that methane to run vehicles at our facilities. This is happening around the world. And then finally, you need a place for stuff to self-haul. Mom and Dad on the weekend, the Resource Recovery Park, the businesses. We did this little project in England, in Waveney Valley. It's if you know northeast England, East Anglia. I spent a couple months really cold. As cold as I've ever been. I'm Southern California. But the idea was they take care of all the residential and the multifamily, but not the businesses. So what we said to the businesses that you could take our 12 categories of material and take them into our facility. And the first place you drop is the reusables. We'll pay you for some of those. There's the recyclables here. We might pay you for these. Then there's the organics. It's probably a break even on this case. There's some of the toxic materials that you're going to have to pay for. The aggregate is going to grind up for roads. And then we put the educational center in the middle. You come in and drop it off here, and the big trucks come in and take the baled materials there. And then these are all the outsourced businesses that are created because you've just created a stream of textiles, a stream of appliances, a stream of paper. So people can set up businesses, and they're doing this to capture this material. So that's kind of our concept. So, we get down to who's responsible. And, somebody said, well, why can't the government just make everybody do it? But, come on, all right? So I do believe in democracy. We have to engage. You have to stand up and participate. And we have to ask the government to pass rules that we all can live with. They got to level the playing field, absolutely. But on the other hand, we're responsible as well. We're the consumer. When you buy that stuff and it's not recyclable, it's not repellable, you've just created a okay to the industry. This is a good item. I can sell it because they're going to buy it. If you said to them, "Guy, I like your product, but I hate your package, and I'm not buying it until it's recyclable," they'll change the package. They will, because they need you to sell their material. So really, in a capitalist society, and they won, folks, so you might as well use your money as a voting card. That's how you make things happen. So on the producers, we want them to do no harm. We want to take responsibility. As far as our consumers, we want to take responsibility. So I looked at my job as being a hands-on recycler. I started with an engineering company, and then I ran two different counties was always waste analysis. What are we generating and what can we do with it? So we used to just look at certain commodities. So we go paper, cardboard and ledger paper and newspaper and then forget about the rest and maybe ferrous metal. Well, what I've done is we've taken this to a 54 sort, where in Denver they sorted all the garbage in 54 categories. And here they represented those 54 categories. And I took those 54 categories and took them into market categories. So when I talked to the metals guy today, I said, well, if I had all the metal in Fort Collins, which is about 4% of what's being generated, all the metal, I'll bring it all to you. Would you buy it? Oh, absolutely. Would you pay me $50 a ton? Well, no, I'd pay you more than that. Didn't he? Yeah, I'll pay you more than that. And the same thing we'll do we'll put these into commodities. Plastics, polymers are plastic, it's reuse. Chemicals, that's your spent oils and your pool acids and stuff that you don't toss away. You don't want to toss away, you can't put it in the landfill. Metals, glass, ceramics are rocks. We don't want to put rocks in the landfill, we grind them up and build stuff out of aggregate. Paper is recyclable, but also Kleenex and tissue are a fiber for composting. Notice the wood, the soil, the putrescibles, which is food, things that putrefy, and plant debris is half of what's generated here. So if you took plant debris, putrescibles, soils, and wood, and some Kleenex, and you have a formula for a great soil amendment. And why would you bury it in the landfill and make methane when you could put it on your farmland? So it's a question of food or fire. You could actually burn it too, but why would you? It's a matter of food or fuel. And I think feeding people in the next 20 years is going to be an issue. That's just me. So all your stuff in Fort Collins are basically laid out this way. And then what I did is I took the percentages, multiplied them by 137,000 tons is what you generate in total for a year, and then divided them out and in annual tons. And then I took what I think were fairly low conservative market prices and applied to them and tried to estimate what the value of what you're burying in a landfill. It's about almost $10 million worth of material. Now I got challenged on the reuse last night, and we said, well, $550 for a ton of reusables, really? Can you really do that? And I said, well, let's talk about that. And we went around to thrift stores today and said, if I have a ton of your stuff sitting there, is it worth $500? Well, it's worth a lot more. Because it's appliances, it's dinette sets, and if there's no recovery, what are they going to do? They tend to the landfill and bury it. It's very sad that in my older age, I go to the landfill and take pictures of what's there being buried so that the people in the office know, and it's furniture and mattresses and clothing. And we need to do a better job on reusable. But notice the other ones, all the paper, the metals, the glass, they all have, and the low value here, what I would do is I would mix those together and create the recipe and deliver it to the composting facility. He's going to grind it up and he's going to make compost and maybe he's going to sell it. Well, that's my analysis. My analysis in general, that there's about $10 million worth of worth for this community, that not necessarily for the government, for an entrepreneur or somebody to turn that into an industry. And we've seen this happen around the world through that. It's just a general estimate, and it's a low value, because in the metals, like he said, he'd give me 50, but you pull a magnet and you got all the steel out. Now what do you got? Gold and silver and copper. There's a lot of money there. Okay, so these are the examples of the reuse and repair industries. Dan Knapp and Mary Lou Vanderveer in Urban Ore have 500,000 square feet of space in which they're making millions selling their reusable materials. This is the Last Chance Mercantile. It's at the foot of the landfill in Monterey. And so everybody comes in, unloads here all their durable goods. And I bring tour groups there. We stand and watch these guys unload, and the vendors are grabbing it as fast as can. That may be a California phenomenon. I don't know. So as we finish up here, we direct this conversation to you, and I guess we do have a couple more speakers. We really want you to look at the policies, the programs, and the facilities needed. That's kind of what we're going to do. It's going to be a consensus of the community. There are going to be some general policies we can make for the whole community that we all want to do. And if we all say yay, we get it done, okay? And then once you do that, then we'll implement some programs, then we'll build some facilities to make it happen. But you start with the policies. Product stewardship is another requirement. Oh, so the first one, let's talk about single-use bags and takeout. containers for reduction. Let's talk about product stewardship and the requirements to retailers. I mean, the government can make rules on how we act. As long as it's a level playing field, I think that's okay. Most of the time when I see it, when you ask the business to do it by themselves, they will, well, if my competitor doesn't do it, he has an unfair advantage. So if everybody has to do it that way, then there's none of that. How would the garbage rates provide incentives for wasting less and for residents and businesses? So, and how could the city help the reuse industry? If all of the stuff was done and we made an ordinance that said it has, could the reuse industry accept all these materials? Would there be a market for it? And these are issues we have to deal with before we make these policies. And what kind of technical assistance and education to help city departments, residents, and businesses are needed to reduce the use of toxic products? So our planned process will be in May. We've been reading all the existing documents that you have, and you've done a lot of work here. So we were able to jump off with a good start. These are our visits. We've been around talking to the recyclers and the reusers, and trying to figure out, what the dynamic is here. We'll come back in July, and we'll have 2 other public meetings talking about organics and talking about energy from waste. In August, we'll start with the analysis of the policies, programs, and facilities, the economics, the impacts, the timeline, and we'll give you in September a draft zero waste plan for you to talk about and feedback, and then we'll feed it back, and hopefully you'll walk with us to the city council. That's what we really want. We want you to be there with us, so the council sees that there's engaged publics that cares about what happens to the discards. If they see you there, then they will be more considerate on their decisions. Help requested, identify issues you'd like addressed. Help ID other stakeholders interested in waste reduction, reuse, recycling, composting, product stewardship, and zero waste. Help promote the zero waste plan process. Engage everybody in the community. Want to make this a consensus program. Pursue zero waste at home. Be a model at school, at work, at play. We identify champions, good people in the community that we can say, hey, look what they're doing. Look what they're doing at the brewery. And while the city develops the longer-term policies and programs to tell us about what you did. So we always say, and I'm going to let Gary finish this one up, because this is kind of a cheer. And we got in a big fight in Florida, one of our national conferences, about zero waste. And so we created these buttons. It says, I'm for zero waste. And I won't take that button. I'm not for zero waste. So I gave him a button that says, I'm for fill in the blank waste. Do you think anybody said, I'm for 90% waste? Nobody said that.
So we've talked with a number of you here. Hopefully after that presentation, you'll have a sense of what zero waste is about. So I'd like to ask the audience the question, how much waste are you for?
Zero.
Okay, so that was okay. But now that you got the idea of what we're actually looking for, we like to do this a little bit more animated, so that Lucinda can hear over in the corner over here. And so let me ask the question again. How much waste are you for? Zero. That's pretty good. So now we're going to up our bar, really try to get to the city council, because they're the ones who really need to hear your message. So how much waste are you for? Zero. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so one of the ideas we had to finish the presentation was a couple of minutes presentation from 2 folks we've talked with. The first is Diane Ewing with Avago Technologies. We understand that she's been working really hard to be a leader in this arena, and we asked her to talk a little bit about what they've been doing as a sample business, striving on the road towards these high diversion goals.
Hi, thank you, Gary. So at Avago, we are a semiconductor manufacturer. We manufacture little tiny microchips that go into your phones and other wireless devices. So first of all, we're very happy to be manufacturing in the United States, that we're not sending that overseas. So, and right here in Fort Collins, and we're expanding. So that's all really good news. I have been at Avago for 13 years. I've been doing the solid waste contract management for 7 years. and have seen a lot of changes actually over those years. I believe back in, well, maybe when we started, we were in the 60% diversion, which I thought was really great. And in 2012, we made 79% diversion, which is also good, but even with that, we still had 374,000 pounds that we sent to the landfill. And that's what I would really like to see change. So we want to increase that diversion, get rid of the stuff going to the landfill, and how do we do that? So we've been really concentrating for years and years and years on the recycle. Recycling is good, reuse and reduce is even better. So just to give you kind of a feel for what are we counting, how do we figure our diversion, or rather what we don't count. What we don't count are things like chemical waste, anything that would be a hazardous waste. We don't count our yard waste. So we've got a very big campus out there at Ziegler and Harmony. We don't count any of that yard waste. And we don't count universal waste, which is batteries, fluorescent lights, anything with mercury in it. Those are things that we either can't legally landfill or we wouldn't as a good environmental steward. So so everything else, I feel like that what we're really counting is real. I mean, if we wanted to count those things, we could say, yeah, we're at 99%, but not really. I mean, so I want to look at a real picture of what we are diverting. So the kinds of things that we recycle, lots of metal, aluminum, other kinds of metal, cardboard, ink cartridges, paper. We also compost. We composted 24,000 pounds of mostly restroom paper towels and coffee station waste. We don't have a cafeteria that we manage, so that would increase our compost by quite a bit. But this is mostly, again, restroom paper towels. If we have a catering, anything like that, then we can use compostables. We carry those on site for people to use if they would. We try to avoid the foam plates that often come with our caterings. Ask them not to bring foam plates. We'll just use our own. We have been doing a lot of construction work, so we recycle concrete. We've been able to recycle quite a bit of drywall, and drywall has to be unpainted, and you have to have an MSDS with it to make sure that there's no asbestos or anything like that in there. So some of that for a remodel could come from an era when they did put asbestos in drywall. The other thing that we don't count in our diversion, I should mention, is e-scrap that would include monitors and PCs, things like that. So that's a pretty good chunk of weight right there. Let's see, what else do we recycle? Packaging materials, a lot of plastics, even some of our manufacturing wastes, such as the wafers, scrap wafers that we print our microchips on. Wood, got a lot of wood, wire, things like that. So we can look at this and say, okay, now if we recycle this stuff, this is really great, but what if somebody could use it? What if they could use it again? So we generate a whole lot of these little shoe covers. This is what the people wear when they go into the clean rooms, where they manufacture the chips. This is our livelihood. It used to be that anytime somebody would come out of the clean room, go take a break, they would take off their booty, throw it out, and put on a clean pair when they went back into the room. And they did that several times a day. So then we decided, well, heck, just reuse them. I mean, you can wear them back into the clean room the whole day. So that really reduced a whole lot. But we still come up with, thousands, well, let me see, about 4,000 pounds of these things, and they're pretty light, 4,000 pounds of them in 2012. So we would love for people to be able to use this. So we've tried to find people such as realtors, people who are going into other people's homes, home audits. So yeah, so they're perfectly reusable, and have also found that if we can't reuse them, that they are recyclable as a plastic. So preferably we can give them a second life. So we have also given packaging materials away to different folks. We send our boxes and the packing materials that come from our office supply contractor back to them. So when they come to deliver our office supplies, they always, every day, they pick up the stuff that we've emptied out from the day before. So that's a great reuse. The cardboard goes back to them, and it doesn't even have to be their boxes. Actually, we can give them boxes that don't have a company name. If they're a plain box, they'll take those as well. So it's nice to see when we get boxes that I can see that they've been used by another company, and that's great. Get our office supplies that way. We've donated craft paper air pillows to a business who ships little tree seedlings across the country. We donate things to schools. So Young People's Learning Center in Fort Collins and Milliken, I believe they are. They have been a really great partner in taking some items that they might not necessarily use themselves, but they'll take them to like an Odyssey of the Mind or a type of place where you're going to have a lot of teachers, and they will, or there are conventions that they can come and pick and choose what they'd like. The types of things that we've given to them are plastic spools. So the spools that cables come on, or polyethylene tubing type of thing that comes on. They can be little or they can be really, really big. A person can climb on them. They put the really big ones out into the playground, and the kids were jumping around on them and having a great time. And they take the smaller ones and make them they'll use them for craft projects. Those things could be recycled, but why not reuse them? I mean, that's pretty much a durable good. That'll last a long time. And we've given them notebook binders that they might not be perfect, but they can decorate them and use them. So it's again a craft project. Plastic corrugated boxes, we generate a whole lot of those. Hate to see those go to waste. I hate to see them just melted down and turned into something else. They're perfectly durable and actually kind of pretty because we have them in different colors. Bubble wrap, other kinds of little plastic container boxes they'll use for craft items, beads and things like that. Foam, they make sponge paintings and cut up the foam. We have looked at other outlets. We're just trying to think of, where can we get rid of some of this stuff? Who can use it? We've donated desks to ClimateWise partners, send out a message to our partners, given it excess furniture. We're looking into the possibility of donating some of our wood waste to a reseller for construction materials. We even get ice packs. We have ice packs that chemicals come in that have to be, chemicals are in a box, the ice pack is around the box, it's put into another box and shipped to us. And so they're perfectly clean. They're great ice packs for your lunch box or your sprained ankle. So those are some of the things that we do to reuse. We also reuse our chemicals. We have a lot of chemicals that we have turned into, we've done a distilling process and are able to recycle those and reuse them. We have an electrolyzed water system that keeps us from having to use and purchase cleaning chemicals. So not only is it green, but we don't have the transportation costs of transporting those chemicals. So it's a water system that does sanitizing, and it does general light duty degreasing. So we clean our carpets with it, we clean our bathrooms with it. It's great stuff. And I would be very happy to share information, or if you'd like to come and take a look at some of those systems, we can do that. We even have one for our laundry, for our cleaning rags and mops and things like that. No laundry soap. It's a sanitizing system. Water goes through it. It basically it electrifies it, changes the ions, so it takes the dirt and smell out of your laundry. So those are some of the basic things we do for products. We also do a lot of water and energy savings, but that's a talk for another day. So that is that.
Thank you so much, Diane. And our last presentation is just a brief note from Kendall Gustafson from Resource, talking about, as a sample reuse business here in Fort Collins, what's it like and what they do.
How's it going, everybody? My name's Kendall. I think I know most of you, and you know that I'm long-winded, so I'm going to make it really short. But I do get really excited, so if you don't understand me, ask me to repeat it, okay? So, who's been to Resource? So, a few people haven't. 1501 North College, get down there. So, every day we divert material from the landfill. It's all building materials. It's real simple. There's tons and tons of people. I guess I'm up here really to speak for all the people that are in the room that either shop or run reuse stores. Tony, EcoThrift. We're big friends with Habitat. They're not our competition, they're our friends. Uncle Benny's, who's down in Loveland. The thing is really neat about reuse, we all kind of collaborate together. So if you shop at one, shop at all of us. But come down to Resource. So want to thank the city for doing this because we want to get to zero waste. I think it's really important. So like I said, we have tons of friends in this community. Who's been to landfill lately? Oh, yeah, I know you have, Stephen. So, unfortunately, a lot of the waste that's going in there, what we see is a lot of it's building materials or C&D waste. And who's been to Home Depot or Lowe's lately? That stuff is expensive. So, right down the road, we're selling stuff for 50 to 90% off of what it costs brand new. So, why do we need to produce a new 2x4 when we're throwing tons and tons and tons of it away every day? Same with the windows, bathtubs, fixtures. My feeling is it's not that, everybody in this room, we all know what we should be doing. It's just training like the habits and these norms from people. I mean, it's easy to throw a 2x4 in the trash, and it's easy to go to Home Depot to buy a new one. The people that haven't been to my store, I'm always like, why? Or why haven't you been to Habitat this week? So, I think that's why we're all here, is to try to figure out how can we start to reuse a lot more stuff. Even though I'm in the reuse and I'm against the landfill kind of mentality, I want to give our landfill credit because Stephen and his team, who's seen the Garbage Garage? It's one of the most amazing educational tools that I've ever seen for teaching kids about keeping stuff out of the landfill. So, we do have some things in place, but at the same time, we have this awesome educational component. There's still people driving to the top. They're throwing metal, cardboard, all this stuff in the landfill. Tony wants it at EcoThrift. Goodwill wants to take the clothing. Habitat wants it. Resource wants it. So as a community, we got to get together and try to figure out ways that we can start to educate the public. I'm from down south, and we don't like to mandate and regulate things. Boulder mandated deconstruction. I was kind of like, oh, you don't want to do that. They've been diverting so much building materials now that they've educated the contractors, because now they saw that there's a way to save money. Instead of paying for roll-offs, a lot of the haulers are now hauling material to reuse places. So Gallegos, for example, we've worked with them numerous times. They're still getting paid to haul things, but instead of hauling it to the landfill, they're hauling it so we can reuse it. And these are these subtle differences in business that, we weren't thinking about this 10 years ago, but I love it when you call me back out. I'm like, yes, I'm going to get some good material. So I think that we can, just because we're not doing it now, we need to keep thinking about new ways that we can reuse. Recycling's good, reuse is better. I know reduction's, what we want to do, but we're still the United States, so. I just wanted to say thank you to our community. I mean, this is an awesome turnout. Please come down to Resource. We like to think we're a resource for the community, so if there's a question about where it can go, we'll send you to the right place.
So we had a couple canned questions, but anybody want to generally respond to the last four talks and make a statement? We're open. We want to make this a meeting for everybody.
Affiliation, I'm just a citizen. I live less than a mile away from the landfill, so I have a good view of it. So my name is Vara, and I was impressed by this last talk on the resource. What was your name?
Kendall.
Kendall, thank you for doing what you're doing. My question is just exactly what is the way you operate and how do you get to get stuff away from the landfills? I had a chance to meet with Mr. Steve, I believe, just a few days ago, and I understand there's some issues about that people cannot go to a landfill and then retrieve stuff from there. So how is it? How can we improve this by having things not get into the landfill or close to the landfill, or how do you partner with a landfill? So I think this is important because I'm seeing trucks drive by regularly and there's a lot of stuff going. So exactly how do you practice what you do, and how do we improve that? And how I understand that things cannot be taken away from the landfill. So yeah, just I would like to see more of this.
Well, we're a local nonprofit, so everything that came to us was donated to our store. So it came from the community, it came from you, it came from you, it came from you. So we get bigger things when we work from the city. Susie Gordon, who is in here, helped me save 2 basketball courts coming out of the Oslon Center with a simple phone call. The key is to get it before it goes to the trash, and that's the hardest thing. Once your neighbors are throwing it in the trash, it usually goes. I'm going to continue to work with the landfill. I think there's ways that we could find, I know it's a hazardous because we can't pull stuff out because there's a lot of liability, but I think with everybody here at the table, maybe there's a way to get box trucks or do other things once people have paid their tipping, but that's going to be a lot of stuff. I think right now it needs to be education and letting people know that there's a lot of areas in town where you can drop off stuff, and that's from the north side to the south side, and there's a lot of different people that want your items.
I also want to know, is Fort Collins landfill picking up things for how big of a geography, and are we, having people truck from far away, and are we taking other people's trash that could be done somewhere else?
Stephen Gillette, Larimer County Solid Waste Director. And at the Larimer County landfill, we take your discards no matter where they're from. We get loads from Wyoming, from Larimer County, from Cheyenne, Rollins, Wyoming, Weld County, Boulder County. And if you're unfortunate enough to visit on the weekend, who knows where all the people are coming from, because it's a very crowded place. So there's no restrictions such as you have to be a resident of Larimer County to bring your waste here. So I can tell you that before the year 2000, there were restrictions. Out of county was charged double, but our landfill volumes went away. The landfill receives no tax dollars. It's supported by landfill tipping fees, and that supports our recycling center, our household hazardous waste facility, and all the rural transfer stations and recycle drop-offs in Larimer County.
Explain why they can't scavenge at the face of the landfill.
Colorado state law.
And you can say why, because you've seen the problem.
Oh, the problem is all you have to do is come up and visit, and it would probably take you about 3 minutes, and you would find a hypodermic needle in the trash. And you do not want to come in contact with that, I don't believe. And that's a problem at MRFs, whether they're recycling or dirty MRFs. Biohazards in the waste stream are a great concern. So it's for the consumer's safety. So if products have been in the landfill and then leave, there's a liability to who? Larimer County for that product. There is, part of the rub.
In my watch in 20 years, I've seen 2 deaths at the landfill at the face, and it had to do with equipment and people walking into it or loads falling on their head. And so given that that's really difficult once it gets, let's talk about how we get that stuff out and not get to the landfill in the first place. Kind of like with Kendall. Anybody want to react to that question, that option of, I'll say, I just think of it as Rick just saying, I'm challenging your mentality. What if we just said, you couldn't put reusables in the landfill? What if you said you had to put that, there was a box truck, or you had to take it to a thrift store or a resource or that, but it wasn't going to go in the landfill? What do you think about that? Is that government taking too much of a role in your life to do that?
I live in a senior apartment, and it's been there for many years. And to recycle is just about impossible because there's no place to put a bin, and it's so easy to walk down the hallway and throw it down the chute to be hauled away. I recycle mine, and about the only one in the whole building out of 130 residents that do that. So you have to make it so that you have to have a big bag or something where other people can take their apartment and some place to load it up and dump it. There is no facilities to do that. There's a lot of older buildings in town that do not have any way of getting that waste to somewhere to recycle.
Yeah, I'm Mark Howdershell. I'm just a citizen. My impression is that people would be a lot more open to government regulation or mandates, whatever you want to call it, about recyclable materials if it's coupled with programs that make it as easy as possible for them to do that. You have to educate them about, so they know exactly what's recyclable. You have to make it easy for them to by providing the bins, as this other gentleman mentioned, and so forth. That the main impediment I've seen in some recycling programs is that people are just told, to recycle, but it's not made very easy for them to do that. All the burden is placed upon them to then, take over the recycling responsibility. So I think if you couple it with a program that makes it easier for them to comply, they're a lot more open to government regulation.
So Bob Mann, I'm here as a citizen. So I just kind of like to pick up on that. One of the tensions that I think that happens is, so when government bans a product or a material from a landfill, is obviously we have to make it convenient, but it's also a great economic opportunity for entrepreneurship. And so the challenge is for government is do we go ahead and then create the easy system, and then we have the allegations that it's government doing everything itself and not promoting capitalism. And that's a real, I think, creative tension that we have when government tries to ban. So it's kind of like you get caught going both ways.
Tony Cooper, I own Eco Thrift right across the street over here on House. What I see is a lot of the costs of recycling are transportation of goods and labor involved in processing. And if there were ways to, subsidize the labor involved in recycling, whether it be cardboard, household, whatever, through community service programs, whatever, I think that would help facilitate the overall efforts to recycle and reuse. And I think the other piece is just education. They're at our thrift store, we try to emphasize to all our customers that we do a lot of recycling, not just, we don't really do the cardboard and plastic and so forth, but what we do offer residents and small businesses is recycling of small amounts of metals. We have a program we can recycle anything that plugs into an electrical outlet. And those kinds of things are very well received, but it's hard to get the word out and say, these are resources that are available here in the community. So it's really, I think the key is expanded education and helping people understand the true costs of waste.
And I think it's a compromise that we work together on this thing.
I'd like to follow up. Just as an example, there's been lots of guides done by agencies. This is one that I particularly like from Ottawa, the Don't Throw It Out, Take It Back guide. So any business that sells products that people have a rough time getting rid of, If they say, we'll take it back from our customers or anyone else who comes in the door to give it back, they'll do it. So here, listed in this guide that's also on the city's website and people get referred to are things like sports equipment, dry cleaning bags, egg cartons, used needles, eyeglasses, printers, light fixtures, cell phones, batteries, and all voluntary initiative. It's a type of, it's a tool for getting out information, particularly working with the businesses to develop customer loyalty.
Yeah, I'm Joe Peisman. I'm the chair of the NRAB, Natural Resources Advisory Board. And I'm just going to point out that we have some real-life examples of banning things from the waste stream. We banned electronics, batteries, and working with businesses and working with haulers. It's been very successful. Now something a little bigger, we just banned cardboard, but I'm pretty confident that, again, working with citizens, residents, and businesses, that the city will phase it in and we'll get to measure its success. And then as far as what's next, the kind of low-hanging fruit, I think for me it seems to be food waste, but it's a little bit complicated. When we talked about it at the NRAB, the first thing that came up, if you're going to have curbside food waste, then you've got issues with animals and bears, and or do you haul it to a central facility, and kind of ask some of the experts what's been some of the things that have worked in other cities.
Well, you got to have a place to take it. That's number one. So if you don't have any composting facility that's permitted to take food waste, that's your first thing that you got to do. Anybody else want to comment? This is you're next. This is an issue in Southern California. We have a huge desire to add food scraps to our yard, but we don't have any permitted facilities. So we're working with the state to change the standards. And one of our big issues is that if you want to go in a composting facility, you have to do an environmental impact report, and that's typically $150,000. Most farmers walk away from that. Our idea in Hawaii was successful as we went to the planning department and said, look, these are farmers. Don't they have the right to grow soil? Isn't that part of being a farmer? And if that's true, then they ought to be able to take in source materials to grow their soil to do that. Now in Hawaii that worked because they're all on lava. They don't have any soil. They really have to buy it from Seattle. So that was an interesting dialogue that we have. But I toss it out. Does the farmer have the right to grow soil? And if that's true, how do we make that happen?
Hi, Nancy Agnew, once again, Thrift Store. I love our donors, the people. I couldn't have a business without people donating to me. But when things are banned or they want to feel good about donating, they'll give us shoes without a sole in them. Now, what do I do with them? They'll give us a television that doesn't work. Any day of the week, you could come by and see people dumping couches that are no good, televisions that are no good. If they set the television down and it does happen to be good, a scrapper will come by and cut the cord and then render it completely useless. They'll do it to refrigerators, washers, and dryers. So we kind of get caught where if it costs money for someone to take it to the landfill or to get rid of it, they will dump it. And I mean, most thrift stores wouldn't have the guts to say that's what happens to us. We become the dumping ground, and probably, I'm going to say 20% of what is brought is not usable for the original intent. We recycle a lot. We, like any of the clothing, shoes, books, purses, we recycle all of them. Of course, we have to crush the couches. We try to take the metal out of it. All of our cords, if we have an appliance that doesn't work, we take the cord, we recycle the cords. I mean, we're doing what we can, but it costs. I mean, we recycle so much cardboard and books every month, and we pay for that. And people just drop it off. I mean, we actually have people bring a bag of trash and donate it. So what can I say? But I love the majority of our donors. There's just a few that will cause a problem.
Peggy, I'm just a citizen. Has California addressed restaurants where you have food left on your plate and you get a to-go container, or all the fast food restaurants that everything is to go. Have they addressed that? Do they have any stipulations? You know, like some of the finer restaurants in Fort Collins, they do not use foam, styrofoam containers. They use recycle, and we all know that those have got to be more expensive for the restaurant. Have they addressed that in California? Because like in Europe, to go is unheard of. You sit down and eat, and you don't get a to-go cup of coffee. You don't get a to-go dinner. Is California changed that?
I don't think so. Not as a rule. In general, we've just the new law is 75% recycling. That's a goal. Now, when you make that as a target for the cities, everybody understands we have to go after the food scraps and the organics. You'll never get to the 75%. We do have leaders in the public health field stepping out and saying, number one thing is to feed people, and they have the it's a what's it called? There's a law that protects you, Good Samaritan law, so that you can give your food at the end of the day to the homeless, and not be liable for it. And also the Samaritan law also applies to reuse. So you can bring your cup in, just like Starbucks will fill your cup up. And so more and more we're trying to get people to take reusables out to dinner, and then when they're done they pack it out and they leave. Is it the law? No. Are there a wedge of green restaurants that are trying to do this? Absolutely. You have them here too. A couple of restaurants that really want to be green, and they'll do everything they can to do it. We think when the wedge happens, that causes the public to buy into it. Once the public buys into it, then becomes public policy. Rapidly coming that way, rapidly.
I would just add that there are lots of communities in California that are considering EPS, expanded polystyrene, commonly known as styrofoam container bans for takeout containers. A number of communities have adopted that around the country and around the world. That's happened. There's been more engagement on the banning of plastic bags. That seems to have eclipsed the styrofoam bans. But the two of those are the two bans du jour that have the most public interest because of a variety of problems associated with both of those. You have looked at the whole issue of bans or fees for plastic bags here in Fort Collins recently by council. So there has been discussion on that issue. We'd welcome any of your thoughts on those types of issues here, so we could capture what you think of those types of ideas. Not every good idea has come from California. We're working all over the country, all over the world, and you may have the best idea on what to do here today. So let's keep them coming.
Tony Cooper from EcoThrift. Just an observation. I grew up in Denver as a child in the 50s, and I remember there were 3 methods of waste disposal available to our household in Denver. One was the trash can for things you put in the trash. The other was the incinerator for burning all the paper, which would go up into the air. And the third was a garbage bucket that you put your food scraps in. And there was a truck that came by, a city truck, and collected every, 3 days, 5 days from this garbage bucket. And it was, dedicated to food scraps. I don't know why we got away from that, but
that's how garbage collection started. They got tired of seeing dead animals in the middle of the street and food, and the pig farmers, hog farmers, went to the cities and said, look, if you let us collect these organics, we'll feed them to the pigs and we'll feed the community. And pretty much all over the world, that's how it happened. And somewhere in the 50s, they had an epidemic of trichinosis. And so it was the public health department said that was probably because you were feeding raw garbage to hogs, and said that they wanted all the food to be cooked before they fed it to the hogs. And that's the same era at the time when we went into open landfills without liners to dump everything, and it just shifted everything. Garbage disposal came in there too. But primarily it was we stopped the hog farmers. Now you're seeing this happening in Hawaii. We went to Source Food to look at composting, and we found that there wasn't any food waste in Hawaii. All the animal farmers were picking up the food waste. The pig farmers were cooking mangoes and papayas. You know, you go in there and you smell, wow, what are you cooking? It's really good. Oh, it's a pig food. Okie dokie. So, but I think we have to get back to that. The organics are something we could feed animals. First we feed people, then we feed animals, then we feed our soil.
I'm glad you brought this back, because can't there be a redesign of that local pickup of compost or food waste in a more decentralized way, in a smaller way? And instead of, if it doesn't have to be on an open landfill with a liner, aren't there, I've seen models of smaller units in little containers, if they could be done in a streetwise or a neighborhood, or if some other agency has a pickup to go and do this, but so that it doesn't get trucked to another city. I believe things go to Eaton or somewhere else, so that's a transport cost, and that city is going to pay for it sometime later. Maybe now it's a business, but at some point it'll become a problem. But there could be those small tank versions of it in neighborhoods, and if the city could do something about it, that'll be great.
On the neighborhood basis, both the Philippines and Italy have done a lot of neighborhood-based collection programs, particularly for the organics. In the barangays, the neighborhoods of the Philippines, they have an ecological waste management law that requires a bunch of these things to happen, and it's organized by essentially the villages and the neighborhoods of the cities. It's not on a citywide basis. Each barangay is responsible for the management of this. So it is one model, and interesting you should be suggesting it.
I'm Sheila Bach, and I run the Recycle and Trash at Colorado State University. And one of our biggest problems with food waste is the permitting. And we have to work with our state government to change the permitting rules for composting so that we can include food waste. I think it's getting more and more important, and right now we've got a permit to do food waste, but it's only on-campus food waste. So we're able to do some of that type of composting, and we're getting good results with the test results for our compost and stuff, and we're using the compost on campus. So I think that's one of the things that we really have to work on, is work on the regulations for composting.
Kendall again with Resource. I just think it's important that everybody knows that, at least my feeling, one of the biggest issues out here is that land is really cheap in Colorado, cheap enough that anybody can start a landfill. So if you go to California, it's easy to push people in other directions because there's a ton of people on a little bit of land. Same in New York, where places are shipping it other places. So a lot of these great ideas that we're going to have, it's hard because, I mean, Stevens competing with another landfill that's just right down the road, and for us to do stuff, and it's fine that we have those, but it's there could be 3 or 4 more. There's so much land out here in the Midwest, so I think it's always going to be economics push what we can do. We all want composting, but to get the facility, it's expensive and it's cheap to dump out here. And I also just wanted to point out to Rich, way to go for recycling in your building. And I bet you if you talk to Climate Wise, we could get some facilities, like some drop bins for all your people there. Pretty easy.
Yeah, my name's Jeff. I'm with a company called Always Sharp, and I just wanted to kind of touch base again. Part of the problem that we've all said is an education aspect, and I always hate to suggest a problem when I don't exactly have a hardcore solution for it. But just in the spirit of education, a lot of the food waste we see, I believe the last statistic I heard is 14,000 cattle a day are thrown away before it's ever even purchased from, say, a supermarket. And I'd be happy to share my beliefs on why a lot of that is. I don't want this to turn into a shameless plug, but a lot of the food that we are throwing away is happening before the consumer even has a chance to to obtain that product because it's not handled properly prior to the consumer getting it. Again, so to sit here and try to discuss solutions for that would not be appropriate. But I think that's a huge aspect that oftentimes gets overlooked is the amount of food that gets wasted pre-consumer.
So my name is Uday, Uday. I actually work in Avago Technologies also. Avago, like Diane. And one of the slides you showed in San Diego, you had that building where people drop off stuff before they go to the landfill. So how come we can't have something like that in Fort Collins?
Diane again from Avago. So I took a tour of the landfill some months ago and was really astonished by the amount of metal that was going into the landfill. I thought, wow, you can get, if it can't be reused, you can certainly get money for it. And if they don't want to take it to a metal recycler, if they could drop it someplace before they ever get to where they're dumping it out of their vehicle, then that's all the more landfill, or all the more money in the pockets of the landfill. So a lot more space in the landfill. So if we could do that, I think that'd be awesome.
This is more of a question. So we're talking about having this facility at the landfill that does all this separation and so forth, but where do the recyclers currently, the people that pick up the recycling from your home, do they sort it themselves? Do they take it to a separate facility to sort? Or would they just do it there at the landfill at this facility then if that was built there instead of where they currently go?
Well, just so folks know, the materials that are collected in the Fort Collins Curbside Collection Program all pretty much funnel in to Larimer County's recycling center, and then from there get transferred to Denver. So that's the current collection system.
Why couldn't you just have the trucks go to wherever the recycling trucks go now, where the separation is done for the current recyclables? Would you need a new facility, or could you use the existing infrastructure to just do that in a more complete manner?
I think Stephen Gillette from Larimer County is in a better position to talk about this, but let me put a shameless plug in for a project that the city's working on. We're going to have a new integrated recycling facility built probably by about the first quarter of 2014, where you can take more of the hard to recycle materials. So it'll be a one-stop shop that is built on the already successful model of our drop-off facility, which, if you don't know, is at 1702 Riverside. Another shameless plug. But so we're working on that within the city. I don't know exactly what this looks like for Larimer County, and I think Stephen he has a very thoughtful look on his face and is listening to these comments about what other models could be for, the landfill is a logical destination because people are going there with a lot of materials.
Do you know that the transfer station where the haulers take all the recyclable materials is located at the landfill? So that system's already in place. Does that clarify what you're asking? Yeah.
I was curious why they...
So it's all in one location. The trucks are going there for the trash, and they're going there for the single stream recycling right now as well.
Unfortunately, right down the road in Boulder, which I'm a proud Fort Collins person, but they have done a little bit different scenario, and they've created this recyclers row. I know this because Resource was asked. So my business, we were given 6 acres to run the reuse part for building materials, and then they're also going to have hard to recycle items, easy to recycle items. So there's going to be other businesses. So there's other models where it doesn't have to be ran by Larimer County Landfill. It doesn't have to be ran by the city, where we have people in our community, we step up, we say we want this, and then we get all the different people that, so if it's Habitat or ARC or every thrift store, and we have a place where it's like a one-stop destination, those things are working around too. And it's working down in Boulder. So just want y'all to know that's happening.
EcoCycle in Boulder this summer, I know, maybe they've done this before, has a door-to-door canvassing program. So we've talked a lot about education and how people can do it and what are the resources. So they actually have, I think, 6 or 7 canvassers going door-to-door and covering about 20,000 homes to teach people to do this. I was wondering if Fort Collins or the local program is thinking of doing something.
So in my summary, and Gary will do his summary, is that what I'm hearing is that you think there need to be more education. People need to know what to do with their discards, and that it should be convenient and available. That if it's convenient and available, then and education, you'll be good to go on this one. We threw out the community ban, and the people are a little bit antsy on that. But again, I heard if you educate us and you make it convenient and available, we wouldn't be upset about. That's kind of what I thought I heard. Shake your head no if you didn't. No? Okay, good. I will say what I heard you say is you want to have these services, you want them convenient and available, and you want to be educated about how to do it. Probably you don't want to be hurting in the enforcement. And that makes a lot of sense.
Some other things I heard were the Resource Recovery Park, which is what was referred to as that San Diego facility thing. Along those lines, the integrated recycling facility got a real positive response. So that's a piece of that. More charming than Resource Recovery Park, and referring to more the hard-to-recycle materials as its emphasis at the integrated recycling facility. But the council asked to go to phase 2 at the beginning of the program to add yard trimmings to the program. So it's going to be more than just the charm boulder that's replicated here in the integrated recycling facility. I heard there could be different locations for those types of facilities, and the landfill was mentioned, but then the Recyclers Row idea from Boulder was another idea, and in terms of the types of facilities and services, those were some of the most important ones. I agree with Rick on the education that I heard so far from these presentations and comments. There was a lot of interest in food scraps as the low-hanging fruit, and I think it's clear there's a number of ways that could be done, and exploring those different options for food scraps would be really helpful. The issue of salvaging or scavenging of the materials before they're disposed of was raised and answered, but was an interesting point that came up about that. In terms of the past Denver approach with the garbage bucket, I'd just like to respond that the old slop bucket, those were referred to as, today there's basically 2 systems that are working in areas that have yard trimmings year-round. They oftentimes will find that they can add food scraps to yard trimmings collection at no additional collection cost. The key is having a facility to take it to. In areas where yard trimmings are not generated year-round, they're going to a separate system. Ontario, Canada is a place where a lot of that's going on, and we just did a study for EPA a couple of years ago documenting over 100 operations of this type around the country. And in Ontario, in order to afford providing an additional collection bucket for basically your old slop bucket, they went to every other week rubbish collection because you must collect garbage, putrescible food scraps weekly for health reasons, but if you've taken that out and are collecting that weekly separately, you don't have to collect the rest of the stuff weekly. So I just want to mention that as one of the things that we will certainly be bringing up in the discussion of the food scraps. I did hear this gentleman talk about the problems in multifamily and different types of senior housing and needing to be easier to do, and so really exploring those. But I did hear an offer from Kendall on how to help on that, and I'm sure the city staff would be happy to do that as well. And in terms of the food composting, one of the key things I heard was the recommendation that the regulations need to encourage facilities to be built as another key idea. On the bans, the biggest issue, besides the ones that Rick mentioned, is basically no ban without a plan, is a phrase we use in California. And bans not necessarily a problem if you have a way of doing it easy, making it cost effective, and have services up and running before you ban something from being taken. We do ask you, one of the last points in Rick's slides was when you go forward from here, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, wherever you have influence, try to do a zero waste event. Do a zero waste lunch, a zero waste wedding, a zero waste Christmas party. Do something that is changing out to reusable mugs or reusable bottles. Do something to keep zero waste in the forefront, and talk to your friends and family about it and ask them to come out. Give us suggestions of who we should contact to come out for further events. We'll be around here for the next couple of months, but we really, this was great. We need to get your input and the input from your friends and colleagues to make this really the best that it can be. Thank you so much.